Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wednesday's Live. This week, I want to continue with the non-traditional papers, the off-white papers. Today, I'm going to be working on a printmaking paper called Stonehenge Craft, I guess because it looks like a brown paper bag sort of thing. The subject we're going to be working with normal watercolors. But we're going to add a bit of white gouache to mix with them. And I think it's probably a really good approach for busy scenes or when you're trying to get something done quickly, because this kind of lets you establish the midtones and you can paint your darks and your lights against that and adjust it accordingly. You can see it's a very busy area here of Rome. The Tiber is over here. There's a little bridge. There was just all this bustle and just wonderful action like that. And I actually got onto, when I tried to paint it, of course you could snap a picture here. But what I did was I got onto this little island where all the traffic was going by and stood on that. It's literally the width of the legs of the easel, and I painted this view here, and I'll shake my brush off to the side, but I was afraid to do that. I didn't want to get my arms clipped by a car or something. Hi, Carol. In fact, what this little sign here means, ZTL non-attiva. There's certain times of day they don't let cars drive down here, but at this particular time, that traffic control wasn't active, so there were cars going up and down the street and people like that. So, hi, Susan. I'm going to, it's a busy scene, there's a lot going on. I want to make sure that I include what it is I actually want to include. I might crop it some, more like this, but then I don't want to crowd the Vespa down there at the bottom, so I'm going to bring it up right where it is. In either case, I'm probably going to have about the same, horizon line there. So let's start with this. And I'm just going to find 2/3, 1/3, the key verticals and the key horizontals. This is a key vertical. It's about a 1/4, maybe a little more. Well, maybe it's about a 1/3. Whoops, here we go. Like that. There's a bit of a diagonal down here. Just hold your pencil. And it's about, now of course there's much more detail in the buildings. And then I want to include the two people on the Vespa down here, so they're a little bit off to the side. But you could place them wherever you want, really. But how to draw a complex thing like that? I call it putting the object in its case, the instrument in the case. Look at the big overall shape. It's sort of like a D. So let's make a D down here. And then let's put an upside down B on top of that. And then let's refine it. Shoulder, shoulder. Look for the divisions. That's 2/3, 1/3. The tail light is up here, and it's another shape like that. There's another. The rear fender is here, license plate there, wheel underneath that, slight diagonal, interesting shadow, hand coming out here on the handlebars, little mirror. And the beautiful thing about this painting on and using white is we can adjust. We can adjust our shapes. That's the lovely part about it. As we paint, we put lights over darks, darks over lights. It all. She's leaning forward a bit. And we just have to find this, looks like a 7. If you drop a plumb line from the helmet to where the leg is. And you'll be surprised how much fudging we can do on this. Now that, because we've got that where we want it, let's go over to what I'm going to make for the, so there's a bit of a, right about here near the top, there's this pitch here, there's just a bit of some building there. I may not even include that. Window here with shutters. Now, this shape of the sky, what might help you draw these buildings, if you look at this, like say, just this portion of it, show you my warped mind, I think it looks like New Hampshire upside down and backwards. So that's the shape I'm going to draw. There's probably a country in Africa or something that's a better version. But think of it as New Hampshire upside down and backwards with a big annexation in Vermont there. It's kind of neat that upside down they all look like Cyrillic. But that's what I'm going to draw, is this sort of any mnemonic device. Hi, Becky. That will help you with that sort of thing is incredibly helpful, because what it does is it helps you visualize a shape. And once you've visualized it, then you can actually draw it. When you're trying to blindly go for a contour, it almost never works out. So if I can find that big shape, it's easier to draw the smaller shapes in between. And not all of them matter, because we're not out here to copy a photo. What we're trying to do is express how did we feel, or how did I feel, looking at all this crazy hustle and bustle on this Roman street. Now there's a group of people coming down here. Again, I am going to make a backwards Oklahoma out of them as a group. Notice they're above the heads of the group of people in here. There's some lines in there. Tree in here. That tree is wonderful because it provides us with an organic shape in the midst of all of this geometric man-made shapes. Yes, Becky, that is I mentioned it in the beginning. It's a printmaking paper called Stonehenge Craft. Yeah, because I'm guessing it's the color of a brown paper bag. So now that I have that, I can find the little island here that I originally painted from. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I stood on that little island there with all the traffic going by, and this is what I painted there. So it was hair-raising. So I think if I'd have been using this stuff, I could have gotten a lot more done, a lot more quickly and easily. So I'm going to make those people happen later, which is one of the neat things about this working on tinted paper. So what I was saying here, we've got these signs. I think they're important because that's the thing that's cluing us into the fact that why it's so busy. So it's two rectangles. And then there's a rectangle behind it. I love that kind of thing, the almost Mondrian type divisions of space. Gonna have to put some, I don't think I need a Fiat, but I think I do need a couple more people. Now the thing we have to remember when we're painting a thing like this, that people's heads, you will notice, are at my eye level. They're sitting on that Vespa, so they're below my eye level, but all the heads are about eye level, regardless of the height of the individual. So I'm going to start out by banging in the big shapes. Got a little interesting sign there. This, I'm going to put that lamp in later because I'm fairly certain that it's going to get covered up and it can recover it rather easily. I like that door down there because it has a shadow on it and it tells me something about the light. I'm also always looking for places where one thing that's in the foreground will overlap something in the middle ground or the background, like the mirror there is overlapping that little island. So that helps me see that they, of course, are in front of that. I mean, obvious, you know, it's, I mean, but alrighty, big shapes, big shapes. How about the sky for starters? I mentioned last week, because you're putting the white into the watercolor, it gives it a little bit more body. So you need a stiffer brush like the nylons. So I am going to mix up a blue. Now when you mix white with colors, the white is going to gray them down a bit because it's not actually white. It's actually a very, very pale gray. So you need to use a blue that is roughly nearly that value and then lighten it. So I'm going to start out with the cerulean, maybe some of the cobalt turquoise, or alternatively just get into something like Prussian, which is very powerful. If I were to use ultramarine and put white with it, it would come out a grayish blue. So let's get some white. and make a blue. Now this is slowish moving paint because it's dense and has a lot of body. So we're just going to put it in there like we see. It's, I don't have to worry if I overlap some of these darks or don't get them just so, because I can come back and paint opaquely over them. Even the white in this vicinity will do just fine if I accidentally get in that. Now let's try to make the sky a little bit darker at the top. So I'm going into the cerulean, and I'm, it's lovely. You mix almost like you could in oils. So anything you know vis-a-vis mixing your colors from your oil painting or your acrylic painting is going to still apply. Let's get a little bit zippier up towards the top. And you can come back later actually and make it denser if you feel you need to. There's my upside down backwards Vermont. Now I'm going to get, I am working sort of lightish to darkish and top to bottom. I'm going to mop that out, that blue there. I'm going to leave that blue there because I'm going to modify it. I'm going to add a color to make the color of the road there. In fact, let's do that. Let's get some, and the other lovely thing about this is you can just use any old color. You don't have to think about how they behave in watercolor. So I'm going to grab some indigo and maybe a little raw umber and just a bit of water. And I'm going to get this grayish bluish, and if it turns out it's too dark, and it may be, I can either lighten it with water or lighten it with a little bit of white or a little bit of yellow ochre or something. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's about right. Again, I don't have to be too fussy about whether I am getting exactly where it needs to be. Probably should have mixed up more. And the other thing is when, like also I would do with watercolor anyway, I'm going to modify it a bit. I'm going to put some more raw umber in it to get a little bit warmer towards the front. A nice oil painting brush would be good here, or, acrylic type painting brush. Let's get that going. Okay. Could use ultramarine here because, burnt umber even. Ultramarine and burnt umber. A little bit of white. Let's get that wetter. I'm going to wet it, pre-wet it a bit. You can be so imprecise with this. I love it. Anywhere you would have a natural variation. And you can come back and it loosens up because it's because the white in it is denser or is a larger particle, it sits on the top. And therefore, when you come back with a wet brush, it loosens up more easily because it's sitting on the surface, as opposed to a smaller particle pigment, which would sink down into the interstices of the paper. Now, this paper is not as heavy as normal watercolor paper. It's 90 pound. Barbara Tapp, my goodness. Now I'm nervous. I'm going to throw some indigo in there and maybe some burnt sienna. And I'm just banging in those darks. So let's take some of that off to the side, put a little white and some burnt sienna into it, maybe some yellow ochre, more burnt sienna maybe, and create our shadow. Let's put a little more white in it. There was some graffiti up here. Very nice graffiti. All over Rome, boy, I tell you. I think because this year is the Jubilee year, they didn't clean it up so much last year, or this year rather. Or yeah, 2024, they didn't clean it up so much because they're waiting to do it now. So I'm just looking around for my darks. Are they bluish? Are they brownish? So I'm using a variety of my blues and a variety of my browns. Now there's some reddishness. I look for triangles, I look for wedge shapes. There's some reddishness here, so I might work a little bit of some orange or some cad red into this to get a because I can loosen this up and go at it. Get some burnt umber in there. It gets darker as it goes down. If you want to see some really wonderful examples of this sort of thing, I would recommend you look up a painter named Hercules Brabazon. It sounds like a French name, but in actuality, he was Irish. Here I'm putting in some cad red to get a dull, like Indian red color. For this tile roof. And when you're mixing and judging your colors, go ahead and maybe, if you're feeling adventurous, mix them a little more vivid than you think you might need. Because you can always make it duller. And that applies in watercolor as well. So I put a little bit of orange, cad orange in there. Let's see. But now I'm going to go back to I'm just going to get a lot of darks. Rich darks. Prussian raw umber. And I'm going to just squint, 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 squint. Remember, I can put little light things on top here later on if I want, where I want. There is a sign in there, I may skip it. I'm not interested in stuff. I am interested in the play of light and shadow, and my main interest is not things or buildings or that type of stuff. What I'm interested in is where is the light getting, where is the light not getting. And it's the passage or the areas of light and shade. We're going to turn that into people at some point. Same here. I really should have a bigger brush, but I don't have a bigger brush of this type. So here I go. I'm just looking for a shape. And, you know, when I was there, people were wandering around, and it's basically a shape like that. Have fun with it. Don't fuss. If it doesn't look like hustle and bustle, and I haven't gotten what I thought I was seeing. Now, it occurs to me, that's a big shape. The more real estate you have, indigo and that yellow, it's called Nicolazzo yellow. It's a yellow, it really is. You squeeze it out, it looks like what comes out of either end of a colicky baby. Hi, Wes! But if you dilute it and put it on white paper, it looks like, brandy or lager or something like that, an amber yellow. I'm getting into my indigo straight up to make the shady areas under the tree. I want to take advantage whenever possible of the dampness of the paper. So I can begin, and I think you will see there is some trees over here too, that rather quickly we're shaping up with the general character of our image. I have to come up with some neutrally grays. So let's get some blue in the brown. Blue and brown always start to make a gray. Get some of these roofs up here. We can modify these shapes. We're not worried about them just yet. We're going to refine them in the end portion of the painting. There's some of that in there, but there's also some more dark in there, isn't there? So I've got some here. I've got right up to the middle of this. Let's get some red, bright red, and put it in there and there. Again, I can change this later. Where is it? How big is it? What shape is it? That's the way you paint. So I'm getting some of that dull terracotta color again, where it's peeking through here and there. Now to me, now I guess I really haven't explained what is the big advantage, John, of having this paper. It's a light medium value, which most everything out there you will find is a light medium value. So it makes it easier to judge your values. Hi, Jerry. I'm going to start putting in some, well, I think I need to do more of this. Back here, I need to refine this shape a bit. Again, I'm not shooting for like aerospace accuracy, I'm shooting for the feel. Okay, indigo and raw umber, not quite black. But I'm going to knock in the shape of these two kids on this Vespa. It's just, I can refine it, just like the oil painters do. Now here we could maybe go into some almost black. I don't actually have a black on here at the moment. I have the indigo, which is probably my closest. It will happen, don't worry. We will make it into that thing. Bit of a shadow coming off of it. Bit of a shadow coming off of our people who are walking along here. Maybe I should put that core in, I don't know. We'll see. There's a darker red, which I'm going to go for my alizarin. Put in here. Where else do I see that? I don't. Okay. That sign, this is fun. Let's get some, it's a dirty brush, clean it up. Let's get some yellow orange. I've turned it into green, good grief. Get that brush clean. Let's put some yellow in it. I'm going to paint this whole sign where it says traffic control is not active. We're going to let that dry, and then we're going to paint the black over it to leave the letters behind. Now, I don't typically do that at this scale, but I should have made that gray over here. For that doorway. There's a sign here. Some lighter spots there. Okay, let's start. What is that? I have something over here that's looks like teal or turquoise or something. I'm going to throw that in the crowd. Different colors. I want to bring this, I'm going to get some green with Prussian blue, deep dark. There's these lovely sections of trees that were on either side of the Tiber there. Let's get a little bit of yellow into that green. Or even yellow ochre would have been good for the sunniest parts of the tree. So I'm going to start building my forms now, working from darks to mediums to lights. Okay. This sign is essentially cerulean. Side of that building. Okay, very important. Well, I've got a window in here. And I forgot that. I also have some sort of yellow-orange sign down here. Hi, Charles. This wants to be, I think, terracotta. Ooh, not that terracotta. Dirty, grayish. Well, not that either. It's nice if you got extra watercolor palettes and you don't have to worry about making a mess of your regular palette. So there are some lighter areas in these tiles. I'm going to suggest those. Rinse that brush good. Yellow ochre, white, maybe a little orange for a peachy tan for this. Roman. There's so many buildings in Rome that have this sort of ochre, sienna, clay color. Water. I could still maybe put some people in there if I'm careful later on. Let it variegate a bit. Again, like I can't emphasize enough, we're not out to copy a photograph, we're out to express an experience. Hustle and bustle and just wonderful sunlight. I'm going to start getting into the whites, and by way of cleaning up that white, I'm going to there's a little bit of building that comes in from the side here. I see some of that here too. Straighten that up. If it's a building, it should be like that. Now, a little whiter, but still somewhat off-white, is this church in here. It's not a pure white. Like the helmets. And there's some sort of like walkway bridge type apparatus. Satellite dish, saw them all over. Start suggesting some people. There's a sign over here. I like that Mondrian sort of displacement. Oh, a little more yellow in it, a little more yellow ochre. Further back, there was a building there. Curve here. Just looking around, I'm looking around. There's some people back in there. Okay, now, actually that building should come down here. Rinse that brush good. I'm going to get that nylon one again, the pointy one. Clean it really good. And I'm going to start getting into some of the, while we're at it. There's some stripes that where light is sneaking through and causing buildings to be illuminated. Let's get some blue and the white for the blue jeans on the girl. Blue jeans on this person. I can refine that later if it's not good. Okay, shadows. Cast shadows under there was this arched walkway. Oh yeah, okay. Well, by way of cleaning up our white, license plate, sneaker, shirts. Okay, it's time for the pointy brush. Well, thank you. I tried to, how to make it easy. That's the thing we want to do. How do we make it easy? We look for the big shapes. Like there's that shape of that sky, the shape of this thing, the shape of that thing. And the key thing to look for is, where is it? That's the most important thing. If we don't get that right, everything else is off. You have a little bit of fudge room, but not much. The next thing is, how big is it? Okay, so, it's about that big. This is a little bit above that. There's the position. Here's the size, that kind of thing. The next thing we want to get into is the shape. Now, oh, thank you, Jan. Now, the problem I think that, or the thing that most people fall down on is that they worry about the shape first. And that's when they wind up getting in maybe the wrong place or the wrong size, or I always tell people about, imagine I was painting your portrait and then I showed it to people who didn't know you. I could get the color of your nose wrong. I could get the shape of your nose wrong. I could get the size of your nose wrong. They would not know, but if I put a nose where a nose does not belong, they're going to assume, hi Deb, they're going to assume that I'm going into my Cubist period, or that I got the whole thing wrong. So, see, now I'm just doing these little things like this to, oh, we got to make this sign is a sort of a pale bluish grayish white. Like I say, I'm not out here to copy the photo. I'm not one of those painters who likes to project something just to get it absolutely dead on right and all that. I try to get stuff in the right place. You know, I do try to do that. And I try to get things the right size, and then I try to get the shape. The more important things, you have very little fudge room. Hi, Jan. The less important things, you have a lot of fudge room. Going back to my portrait analogy there, there's a portrait of Madame Matisse by, I believe, André Derain, and she's got a green stripe down her nose and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And it looks absolutely right. And it looks like a person, maybe in lamplight. But why does it work? Well, it's because Derain got the size of her head and the size of her nose right, and then he got the placement of it, most importantly. Then he got the size of it right, and then when he got in the shape of it relatively right, but then when he got to the color, he could play around. And even then in color, the most important thing with the color is getting the value right. How dark or how light. And what I like about this is it makes it easier for me because I can adjust as I go along, whereas with normal watercolor, I've got to get it pretty darn good pretty early on. This allows me some playing room, adjustment. So like what I'm doing now is I'm adjusting this helmet as it curls under there. It gets shady or darker. But it's a warmish dark. So I'm getting over here in these browns and stuff. Now the transition I'm making on this helmet is rather abrupt, but you see later that I can... Oh, now see the jacket. There's some lighter spots on the jacket. So I'm getting some of this brownish gray, and the illuminated portions of the black jacket I'm going to get like by putting that on top. Now normally I would have to get that just right and then put the darks on later. So we're starting to get into So let's get some blue, make it a bluer, darker, bluer gray, some indigo. I can put the shadow on the jeans. Tighten these shapes up. Get the mirror. Crazy about the fact that it overlaps. Hustle and bustle, that's what I want to try and express. Hustle and bustle. Let's put some people over here. Heads at the same level. Shopping bag or something. There's using the raw umber, maybe I'll change that up a little bit. Shadows from these people. Sometimes you can create a person just with the highlights on their shoulder. Or just the cap, shape of the cap. Or there's some vehicles back here, which are basically horizontal shapes. There's a big van back here. I think I'll put that in. Now I need a bluish gray because the side of the van is in shadow. It's a white van. And something dark green maybe, bluish green for the windscreen. Let's get some cad red or cad orange or burnt sienna. Dark, warm, reddish colors usually is good for, it's browner than that. Let's get browner. Not so red. For flesh, suggest some faces. We could even go lighter than that. Reddish orange kind of. I think I'm going to colorful people. Where else can I have some fun? Thank you, Deb. It's just I'm enjoying the ease of this. It reminds me of oil painting now. But it's water media. Hooray, hooray. Now let's say I don't like what I did just there. There's a little muffler sort of thing in here. Some stuff like that. I can take this brush, damp, well, not, no, maybe not that, yeah, that one, and squeeze the water out, and I can soften these shapes because this let's get some raw umber and that sort of thing, and try to make the street look a little more streety. Is that a word? It shouldn't be like a super smooth, I don't think. It's a cobblestone street. So I can take this damp brush, has partially squeezed out, maybe you can put a little color in it here and there, and work it in if I want to create some fun that way. Where I want strong darks, I can put those in. It's like oil painting where I want, say, a little bit more of a glare on that tail light. Can do that. I can make the parts of the Vespa look really, really red. There should be some, yeah, let's have a note of red somewhere back there. Let's go up and do some refinement in the building. See that? Shadow portion on the one of those doors that rolls up, metal doors. Maybe I should have put that fiat in there. Heavens, any old color. As long as the value is right, that's what I'm after. Oh, we've got that lovely little lamp. Now these dark obscure areas, if you park a even darker thing into it, like say, it makes it look more illuminated. I don't know why that is. I'm looking at that shape in there. Let's see if I should get that a little closer to. It's very dark. Some very dark areas in here too. So that area that looked kind of muddy now looks less muddy because there's something very dark showing up next to it. Now, okay, I talked about I was going to do that. Hi, Carol. Hi, Marge. I was going to do the sign here. So what we're going to do, we're going to negatively paint it. And we could likewise suggest some things. Controllo, electronico, accesso, ZTL. Okay, let's go back to, I see some places here I could get a sort of a warm gray shadow under. There's some other things on this sign. I'm not sure I want to do them. It's my chief desire is to, let's get some yellow ochre. Make it a little sunnier up top here. Could splatter that, couldn't I? But hopefully thank you, David. You can get the idea of what can be done here, starting with this tan substrate. And you can go in and recover darks, recover lights. Reshape things. Oh yeah, there's a sidewalk over here, isn't there? So let's peel our tape. And a sneaker. Oh, heck, we can't not have the red and green stripes on the helmet. Gotta have that. It's Italy. How about a wee bit of a highlight on that tail light or whatever it is. Some flesh tones, arms or something. Just trying to be suggestive. There's beauty in imperfection because life is like that. And its beauty is its authenticity. Imperfections. Okay. Let's peel and see what we get. The white, yeah. It is, yeah, let me check it. It is the M. Graham gouache white, which I like because you can get it in a larger tube like that as opposed to the regular size watercolor tube. But You could also, we were using last week on the black paper, you could also use like the Jaune Brilliant 1 and 2. Thank you, Carol. You could use colors like Naples Yellow, because if you check the tube, you can see that's usually, or the lavender, the Holbein lavender, they typically are yellow ochre. In the case of, say, the Naples Yellow or the Jaune Brilliant, it's yellow ochre or a regular yellow and some white. So, oh, Carol asked, where was this at? Okay, so back here where I was, the hotel we stayed at was this way. And right over here was the bridge, which, the Ponte Sisto Bridge, which is absolutely, oh my goodness, drop dead gorgeous place. And in Rome. But there were busy, lovely, busy streets everywhere. So there we are. Oh, where do I get the colored paper? Well, I buy mine at our local art supply store, Cindy's Art Beat. But you can also get it at Dick Blick. And it comes in sheet form, which I get standard 22 by 30. And it comes in pads of various sizes, but the easiest and least expensive is to get it in sheet form and then cut it to the size you want. Look at this. It's 90-pound paper. It's not buckling. I don't know what it is about this, that you can do sloppy washes or painting on it. And I also use it for pastel. There's one side's a little smoother, which I'm painting on now, and the other side's a little toothier, and that's what I'll use for pastel. And wonderful paper. It's 100% cotton, has a nice deckled edge if it's a full sheet, and it's not terribly expensive. It's a little bit less than watercolor paper. Wonderful stuff, and I'm seriously going to make a sketchbook of it. Thank you, Jerry, to travel with, and just take my little small watercolor set and a travel brush and a pencil and a bit of white in there and have fun with that. So, hope everybody enjoyed that. Next week, Jerry asked about the situation of mud, how to deal with that in watercolors. And I know that's a very popular subject. And I'm going to talk about, there's a lot of different things that people mean mud. How it gets created and how to deal with it, how not to do it if you don't want to do it. And I think people will find it helpful. So no, Carol, it's not a watercolor paper, it's a printmaking paper. For, like people who do lithography or those sorts of things. I'm just adding some little oddball roof details here. To get that terracotta roof look, I'm going to put a sort of a serrated edge there. And shape that a little better. And because part of it is in shadow, do that. Oh, there's just so many other fun things you can do with this. You see, I can go back and put a, thank you, Susan. Thank you, Carol. It's just, this is very forgiving as a approach to painting. And I guess technically it's sort of, you would call it gouache, but it is watercolor I'm using, and I'm just mixing some white with it. Anybody that should have a shadow, I'm making sure there's a shadow there. Okay, so there it is. Tan paper. There's also, it comes in gray. Some paler shades that would be closer to this anyway. And black, which we used last week. That actually is a watercolor paper. The Stonehenge black is a bona fide watercolor paper. So next week, mud and how not to get it. So thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.